Now, it wasn't like Hurricane Katrina or Maria levels, but 35 people died, which is very bad for hurricanes in America. And the water levels, you can see, got pretty high in some places as high as 6 or 7 feet. Now, all of this, of course, was expected to happen, tragic but expected. What was unexpected was pigs. Pigs, I guess we haven't really taken that into account, but North Carolina is probably the largest source of pig farming in America. A huge amount of our pork and bacon comes from North Carolina, and there's a problem with this. Well, it depends on how you feel about animals, I guess. The first problem is they're kept basically in these silos right next to each other. They're just force-fed food. They can't really move until they're large enough to cut up into delicious pieces. But while that happens, what's going on back here? What's that? It's common in every hog farm. What is it? It's not water.
Mud.
It's not mud. It's poop, ladies and gentlemen. They're called hog feces lagoons. Basically, the hogs, all of their waste is channeled into these giant lakes out the back, which are entirely made of liquid hog poop. Now, while you're thinking about that, think about what happens during a hurricane. Yes, there we go, which water levels rise. And that means that if the water levels rose all around this hog farm, then where is all of that hog poop? Everywhere, ladies and gentlemen. And it turns out there are like millions of hogs in North Carolina, so that stuff got all through the water supply, and that's bad news. Because when the waters go down, that stuff will land like in your yard, or in your soil, or on your house. So those are certainly issues, right? On top of that, the hogs, of course, had nowhere to go. So there were about 50,000 dead hogs that drowned during the hurricane. Really, no awe for the 35 people that died, but the hogs all of a sudden were concerned about? Only 35 people? Oh my goodness. So, does make it more real. Good point. So, it turns out that chickens, big chicken farming area in North Carolina as well. 50,000 hogs died, 3.4 million chickens drowned during this. That's a lot. That's a lot of nuggets, ladies and gentlemen. That's a lot of nuggets. Okay. We gotta move on. So, last bit of this, that Donald Trump visited the area over the weekend and saw the devastation. He's here at one man's house. Notice anything unusual about this picture?
There's a giant boat.
There's a giant boat in the man's yard. Yes, this man does not live by the ocean or a river. He just has a boat in his yard now. And while Trump was there, he talked with the owner and asked him, "Is this your boat?" To which the owner said, "No, that is not my boat." And then followed it up by saying, "Well, at least you got a nice boat out of the deal." Which, I mean, his house is destroyed, and there's a boat in his yard. Trump's making a joke here, and that's fine. You know, humor lightens the moment. I get it. I laughed certainly when I read it. But then he followed it up later in the day with this comment to reporters saying, "What's the law? Maybe it becomes theirs." That's not how the law works. Like if a boat ends up in your yard, you don't get to keep it, ladies and gentlemen. That is, I feel like we should know this. That is not how, finders keepers is not the law in America. It's not a thing, all right? All right, big story for today. The first one is about this man here. His name is Bob Woodward. Bob Woodward is a very famous American author. He's written about politics and presidents for almost 40 years. This was him way back in 1974 when he became famous, and became famous for uncovering a tiny scandal you might have heard about before called Watergate. He's the reporter that cracked the case and basically made Nixon resign as president, the biggest scandal essentially in American politics. And he's written a book on every single president ever since then. His books on Obama and Bush, you can see right there. He is famous for meticulously researching his subjects. He gets sources, he gets tapes, he has evidence. He's like Chicago-style's dream, ladies and gentlemen. All of these footnotes in his books. And he's always, he will criticize presidents. It doesn't matter, Republican or Democrat, if they do a bad job, then he writes about it in his book. Of course, he spent the last 2 years writing a book about President Trump, which came out this week, and he guesses as to the title of that book. Not good is a pretty good place to start. It's called Fear. In giant capital letters, Trump in the White House, and the book became a bestseller when it came out this weekend. Partially because of the quotes inside the book. He's talked to a bunch of people at the highest levels of government, and some of the stuff they said was pretty surprising. This is Jim Mattis, he's the Secretary of Defense. He's in command of the entire American military, and he's quoted in the book as saying Trump has the understanding of a 5th or 6th grader. This was followed by a comment by the Chief of Staff. This is basically the second in command to the entire government. The chief of staff here is John Kelly, who said, we're in crazy town, I don't even know why any of us are here, and followed it up later by saying, this is the worst job I've ever had. Generally not the things you want to hear from the top levels of government, right? Now both of those men have denied it. They've said, I never said those things, they aren't true, but again, you have to wonder, like, who's telling the truth here? Is it Woodward and all of his sources, or is it these two men right here? And remember, they have a motivation for lying and denying, which would be what? Yeah, sure, we can just fire them if they admitted to saying that. So I don't know. Maybe they said it, maybe they didn't. You know, we aren't going to know unless the author releases the tapes. But to me, the most incredible story came from Harry Cohn, who's the economic advisor to the president. Cohn, in the book, and he stands by this, says that at one point, there's a trade deal between us and South Korea. Trump wanted to get rid of the deal. The deal's been in place for 60 years. And part of the deal is that we're allowed to monitor nuclear missile attacks. So if North Korea launches missiles, we find out about it like 38 minutes in advance. It's a huge window for us to shoot down those missiles. But Trump wanted to kill the deal, which would remove all of those missile sites. And Cohn, panicking about this, said that what he did, because the order was on the president's desk, all the president had to do was sign the order. And Cohn, in the book, admits that he just stole the letter off the president's desk. Just took it and didn't bring it back. And he said the reason this worked is because Donald Trump never noticed that it was missing. If it's not right in front of him, he forgets about it and moves on to something else. Now again, we don't. Trump has denied that this is true, but the Korean deal is still there. Like, he has not canceled it yet. So you have to wonder, like, if this really happened. It's actually insane if this is true. And then the last story I want to give you is one in which Trump talked to his Secretary of Defense, the guy in charge of the military. This is the leader of Syria. Syria is that nation that we're kind of fighting a civil war with. And Trump, upon learning how badly the war is going, allegedly said this to his Secretary of Defense. Now, here's why this matters. The leader of the country is a political leader. You cannot murder him. That is called political assassination. You cannot do that. America doesn't do that. Other countries aren't supposed to do that. And then, as if the story isn't crazy enough, then apparently the Secretary of Defense told the president, yes, okay, I've got it. And then on the phone with his people, said, we're not going to do any of that, which is disobeying a direct order from the commander-in-chief. And if any of these things are true, this is absolute madness that this is happening right now in the White House. It's fascinating. I don't know. Well, who knows what's right or wrong? Trump has denied all of these things happening, and he has said in his own tweet that he will be writing his own book at some point in the future. I guess we'll have to wait and see. Okay? My last story for you is about Flint, Michigan. A small town in Flint near Detroit. Anyone know why they're in the news? Happened? Yeah.
Still about water or something?
It is about water. Very good. So here's the thing. Flint, Michigan is a normal town in America, and they have one big business, which is building GM cars. The biggest GM factory in all of America. Everyone in the town works for GM. What happened? GM closed the factory. They moved to Mexico, where it was cheaper to build cars. So American cars today, a lot of them are made in Mexico and then brought back here. And because of that, Flint went downhill fast. All the people in the town lost their jobs. There was no money. Crime rates are in the highest in all of America. The amount of police in the town is among the lowest in all of America. Like, the town has completely just gone into decline. And the reason this has gotten worse is because Flint, 2 years ago, they have no money. To save money, changed their water supply. They used to get their water from Lake Huron, which is what gets it to Detroit, but that was expensive. So now they get their money from the Flint River. And the Flint River was way cheaper. Everyone thought this would work out great, except there was a problem. Oh no, the problem was, the problem was the water was corrosive. And as the water flowed through the pipes of the city, which are made of lead, it corroded the lead and looked like this. And then that lead got into the water supply. Lead is a poison. It is very bad. How much lead can you safely have in the water supply? No? None. Zero amount is good for you. Okay? So the problem here is that because of the lead which went into the water, it's not about 2014, 2015, all of a sudden the birth rate in Flint dropped dramatically during that time. This serious disease called Legionnaire's disease, which only happens from drinking lead and water, spikes all of a sudden around the same time. And the government covers the whole thing up. It doesn't tell anybody about it. They say the water is safe to drink. Clearly they know about this, and they hid it from the American public. That is a crime. That is a felony. The problem is, if you look at Detroit's water supply, remember, zero is good. No amount is good. So 2.3 per billion, you can survive on that. That's not terrible. all right? But Flint water is 12 times that rate. That is way more serious. And when they tested it again, back in 2016, some places were way higher than that. And of all the tests, the highest one, real bad. So all of a sudden, like, these amounts can kill you, cause birth defects, cause all kinds of problems in the future. And Flint's water comes out of the tap now looking like that. Like when you open the tap in your sink and that is what pours out, you probably shouldn't be drinking that water. Now the problem is, there's a lot of problems here for Flint. First off, their health director of Michigan, this guy got charged with a felony, involuntary manslaughter, because he did not warn the public about it. How much time did he get in jail for? He got 30 years. He didn't even kill anyone. He's just signing the papers that said this water was okay. So people want justice. What do you do when you can't drink the water? Like, let's say all of a sudden you can't drink your tap water at home. How do you survive? What's that? You buy water, right? Like, literally, they have to have bottled water shipped into the city, the entire city of people, every single day. Just imagine, think about how much water you drink in a day. No water fountain in the school is going to be safe. You can't drink that or any water at home. When you shower, Flint residents can't open their mouth in the shower because the water, the tap water can't get into your body. It can't happen. Just think about how insane that would be. It got worse because Nestle, which actually makes bottled water, one of their biggest tapping sources is right next to Flint, Michigan. So they are taking water from next to Flint and then selling it back to the people of Flint for a markup. And people have been pretty upset about this whole thing, as you would imagine. How do you even do this? Anyone been without water for a day or two? Like your house, the water supply just cut off? Anyone have their, has it happened to you? How long? Yeah, it's just like, it seems like it's not a big deal until it happens, and it is like hugely inconvenient. Anyone ever lost like a hot water heater in your house? Ever that ever break? Isn't that fun? That's a good time? This happened, we had neighbors where we actually, like, they would have to come over to our house every day. Like, you bring your towel and your shampoo and your rubber ducky, and you have to go to someone's house and shower and then go back. It is a huge problem. How do you fix this problem? Because remember, the lead is in all of the pipes in the flood that have now been corroded. How do we solve this? You have to repipe the entire city. Dig up every single water pipe, all of those, replace them and put them back in a city which has no money to begin with. It's extremely expensive, it takes a long time. How long did it take before they finally had clean water back again? They don't have it yet. This was from last year when they'd been 1,000 days without water. They're at 1,400 days right now. They don't expect this project to be done until 2020. That'll be 6 years without drinking water in an entire city. It's absolutely outrageous that it's happened. And one of the big comments about this has been, would this have happened in a city which had more money and less black people? Can you imagine the same kind of thing happening in Frankfurt, where there's a lot more money to go around and a lot more white people? And people have wondered, is there a racist response in how slow the government has been to get water to these people? Okay, big story today, but we've got to move on, ladies and gentlemen, lots to learn. So, notebooks are out, we're going to keep going.